Phil, we've only seen in recent years a modest fraction of business process and function and IT function move into shared services. Why is this?
Well, thank you, Phil. Good morning, everybody. That's actually something you and I have discussed a little bit before. I think it's a great question because actually when I see some of these surveys about, the Fortune 500, how many have done shared services, you find these statistics that say 96%. Or you say, of the largest organizations in the US, 3/4 of generated savings from shared services. Well, actually, when you drill down and you ask the next question, well, what within your functions and processes do you actually shared services? If they've answered accounts payable, they still tick that box, we do shared services. But when you think about the multiple processes that could potentially be shared serviced or outsourced or a combination of both, really, I think, and I think we've discussed this, the scope is far, far more significant. There's good news and bad news on that. Why is that? And we can maybe talk about that. But there's a lot more opportunity out there than underneath the surface of that main question.
Okay. So do you think that the scope of shared services today is anything near as broad and comprehensive as it should be?
Absolutely not.
Right.
I think the opportunity is significant to actually, I talked about multifunctional yesterday, and actually the textbooks talk about things like multifunctional, best practice, greenfield. In reality, things don't move as fast as that. There's a lot of reasons why things don't move as fast as that, because I heard Sam said it, I've said it, doing shared services and outsourcing, while it's not rocket science, it's actually hard. And to actually make things happen, this change management thing we talk about, it's significant. And therefore, things don't move as quickly as you might think about in theory. So the opportunity is significant. So it should have moved faster potentially, but the story is going forward, huge opportunity.
Okay, so what's holding this back then? What needs to change in the mindsets of enterprise leaders today to...
Right, which gets to the point, I think, about people and talent, which is sort of the subject matter here. And change management as well. It's not just about putting up a slide that says we can potentially save 30% on these costs. It's about the whole story, about how you manage the change. It's about it's the story, it's the competitive advantage. I believe, and I touched on this yesterday, that at the C-suite, people still don't really understand shared services and outsourcing to an extent. Right. They sort of think it's a lift and shift, out of sight, out of mind, non-core process. Therefore, it's a one-time deal. So I think the leaders in shared services need to understand more about selling this, presenting it better. What's the competitive advantage from doing this? Why is it so important to have leaders who understand the next steps? And actually, when you're managing outsourcing relationships, it's not just about lift and shift, because outsourcing is prevalent throughout your organization. It's how do you manage that relationship? I heard people this morning talk about RFPs being a problem, etc. I agree. We need to develop this. It's continual, and leaders need to learn those skills.
I mean, it seems that there's just a horrible awareness communication problem in the industry in general, in that, vast quantities of CFOs don't even really understand what shared services and outsourcing is all about.
Right.
So what needs to change within enterprises to talk about the value that shared services can deliver? And
well, a lot of that is owned by people in this room.
Yeah.
I mean, we need to be going back to our senior management and not just talking about shared services as if it's the end in itself. Shared services and outsourcing is a means to an end. It's supposed to provide value to our host businesses, and in the public sector, it's our host, federal agencies or whatever it might be. We're not just doing this for one reason. We're doing it because of the business requirement, the strategic. We need to do a better job, us, and the research, etc., in presenting why this needs to be sold better, explained better, and the value. And back to change management, it's what's in it for me. The senior managers have that question as well. What's in it for me? You told me 30% reduction in cost, then what? Why do I need to care? I don't think we sell that story well enough.
And why is that? Is that just that shared services organizations don't have enough skilled practitioners to do that communication? Are they not run by the people with the right caliber or the right skill set?
I think it's a bit of both.
Right.
I think there are a lot of really good people in shared services who aren't necessarily skilled up yet to do it or don't necessarily have the experience. There are a lot of people out there who really do, and a lot of them are here as well. So I think we need to upskill ourselves. We need to do a lot more of developing of that and actually develop our own teams. There isn't a lot of training around You know, it's the old saying, hire for attitude, train for skill. Hiring for attitude in this is really important too, because if you get this whole concept of passion and sharing, and then do the training on top of it, so there should be better training programs as well. So I think it's a mix. I think the quality is there, but there needs to be a much better development of those skills. And we, if you want to call it that, the researchers, the leaders, need to help that happen.
It's interesting. And I read a recent study from, I think, McKinsey, trying to claim that in 2020, we'll have a surplus of 300,000 office workers across the States and a deficit of 200,000 data scientists. What does this tell you? That we're just not analytical enough? We need to go back to the drawing board and think about training and development?
Yes. I mean, straight answer is yes. Right. If we're going to have a surplus of people, because actually we haven't even touched on technology, big topic, but if you actually, one of the stats this morning that Sam showed, and you guys all said standardization is one of the great aims of what we're trying to achieve in process. Well, if you standardize and you get it all focused, then what happens? You can look to automate, and so that will result in a reduction in the requirements of people. So those people need to be retrained to do the value-add stuff we started to hear about here, the data analytics, to your point. So that data statistic doesn't surprise me at all. Very consistent.
Okay. I think in our remaining minutes, we just concluded a massive analysis of, I think, 750 F&A BPO engagements, and 80% of them were pure people lift and shift. There was no technology transformation involved at all. What does that tell you about the future of sourcing and where we're going?
Well, actually, that analogy can also apply to an extent in internal shared services. There's still a lot of lift and shift going on. It actually tells me one thing: it's really hard to make the change. So you often find a lift and shift happening just to get things out of where it is today and moved. So that isn't necessarily a bad thing, but once it's been moved, it needs to be changed, it needs to be innovated. That's the key. Yeah. So that would be a short answer. I could say a lot more, but that would be the short answer.
So in other words, when companies are doing these big initiative programs, whether it's shared services or outsourcing, they're like kicking the can down the road a bit and saying, well, we'll just go and do the shift now, we'll save some money, and then we'll worry about technology and innovation and things like that.
And back to the point about the leaders, we need to be thinking about not doing that. It's not a one-time deal. We've got to improve.